Hi, this is Nahid, and I'd like to welcome you to January 2016. The theme of our month is happiness, and we have so much going on this month. First of all, we have our group calls, of course. They are every Tuesday and Friday, 11 to 12 Pacific time, 2 to 3 Eastern time. And on these calls, we're going to be talking about the science of happiness and applying it to life and business. And of course, we're going to be asking each of you what your theme is and how you're doing on your progress towards your goals, as well as getting to great conversations about these topics and how they apply to your life. The other thing we're doing this year, which is new, is we're starting a book club where we have a book assigned to every month, and that book will be discussed on our group calls. We also are starting a mentoring group, which is a group of Aspire members who have been in the program for a while, mentoring and sponsoring other Aspire members. And this helps new members get situated a little bit more quickly and really just helps people get to know each other better and helps you know that you have people that are invested in you and care about helping you get access to the tools and resources you need to achieve your goals, also to help you meet the other people in the Aspire program and develop a really high quality network. Along those same notes, we're also starting a community connection group because one of my visions for our community is that we're not only a community on the telephone or in person in the few meetings that we have that are in person and on email, but we're also online 24/7 so that there's always someone you can connect with and talk to. And with that in mind, we're starting a community connection group as part of our community. We also have some bonus things going on this month. We are maintaining our writers forum. We're going to have about 6 classes this year related specifically to writing for those members who are doing that right now and want to have the extra support on it. Plus, one of our members, Penny T., who is writing a book, is starting an additional support group, and she's running 2 Writers for Writers support groups, one at the Santa Margarita Library and one at a library in Irvine, and those will be on our calendar, and they're free to Aspire members. So if you are local and you have something that you want to be writing, it doesn't necessarily have to be a book, and you want a group of people that you can share feedback with, that will be on our calendar, and you can join Penny at that. So let's talk a little bit more about our mentoring group. The mentoring group is for those Aspire members who have been with us for a pretty long time and know the program and have been working on themselves. And so when new people come in, you can share what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, and maybe help them get situated. But there's other advantages to this group. Mainly, it's kind of an advanced program for those of you who are leaders and who would like to do a little bit more coaching to develop your leadership style to the next level. If you want to become more of a coach-like leader, for example, or if you want to apply some coaching skills or psychology skills to how you interact with your team, how you inspire them, how you motivate them. So I'll be teaching you pretty much everything I know about coaching and creating an environment that helps people perform. And you can apply that wherever you're in an environment where you're leading people and helping them perform better. You can even apply it as a parent to your home environment, so it's not just for leaders. But also you'll be able to practice on new members coming into the community. And one of my main purposes for this is as we grow, I'd like you to get to know each other better. And sometimes you can't just get to know each other better without some reason, and so forming a mentoring relationship gives you a reason. But this is not going to be extremely time consuming. Your job is not necessarily going to be to bring someone along or give them feedback on their progress as a classic mentoring situation might be. Your job is mainly to be a good listener and to help them make connections and to help them get really comfortable with the program. So to that end, your time commitment is going to be small. There'd be an extra hour each month as far as a phone call where you're going to be supervised and learning some of the coaching skills, and we'll be sharing best practices. But the time you spent with your quote-unquote mentees will be more checking in once a month, once every 2 months, and you can have as many people assigned to you as you want, but it doesn't have to be a lot. I'm hoping to get a nice group of 5 people to start our mentoring program this year. And again, we're just getting started with it, so I'm not sure how far we'll go with it. But I'd love to have any one of you who's interested. And even if you don't think you qualify, go ahead and reach out to me if you're interested. I'd like to know. Thank you. Okay, now the other group is our community connection group. And the community connection group, the purpose of that is to get our forums going. I've got a couple of examples of 2 of our forums, but we have many more than 2. One of these is our Facebook Personal Development. This is a private group. See how it says closed group right here? And we have a lot of people in it, but it's very rare that we have a conversation going in it. And that's because, people don't post anything for more than a few times a year, and so we don't really get a lot of conversation. But there's such an opportunity here for us to get some really rich conversation going. For those of you who are comfortable interacting freely in a closed Facebook group, this is where you can actually talk about what happened on the calls because it's private. Now, we also have a group on LinkedIn, and this is more of a public group. We're inviting anybody in, and here's an example of I posted an article. It wasn't even my article, but it was an article that I liked, and one of our other members, Patty, she's one of our Aspire members, she put a little pointer on there. But typically what it is me or Kathy posting something and then nobody responding to it. So again, whatever forum you are in, if you have a goal this year of being more active online and interacting more with people, I could really use your help with maybe 2 or 3 or 5 other Aspire members to spend some of your time interacting in the Aspire forums. And these are 2 of them. We have a few more forums that are various levels of public privacy and different social networks. And I would love to get those going, because what my vision is for us is that if you wake up at 2:30 in the morning and you have thoughts and you're bored and you can't sleep and you get online, you could go into one of our forums and read or participate in a conversation, even if nobody else around you is awake or available or there aren't any Aspire classes going on right now. You also have access to our phone classes, and those are recorded, but this really gives you a sense of connection and a place to connect 24/7. And as we continue to grow, there'll be more people to connect with. And again, I think Aspire represents one of the highest quality networks you can be a part of, because all of us are pretty high level. All of us are really, really invested in ongoing personal development. And so we share a lot of the same values. Okay. Our book of the month is called Flow, and it's going to be very difficult for me to pronounce this guy's name. Mihaly, I think it is, and I'm not going to try the last name, but he's actually a professor in the area. And this book he wrote a while ago, I think in the 80s, and you'll notice when you read it that it has been written a while ago, maybe 20 years ago, but it's still written pretty well. And he captures this certain state that people get into that represents kind of a super balance between being completely challenged and being really excited because you can do something, and just this pure concentration in a task, this level of engagement. He calls it flow, and it happens to correlate very highly with happiness. And he believes that this is when people are happy, is when they're in flow. And so the goal here is to kind of be in flow as much of the time as you can. I got a lot of great insights reading this book. I did take some time to read it over the holidays, and I know that some of you feel like you're really busy, and if you haven't started the book yet, that you might not get to finishing it by the time we have our book club calls. Our book club calls are going to be our second and fourth Friday of the month calls. But don't worry, you don't have to have the book completed to be on the call and have the discussion. And also, he has a TED Talk on this, and I'm going to try to link to it on the website, but you can also just search for it and listen to the TED Talk, which is about, like most TED Talks, about 18 minutes. And so that should give you a really good sense of what he's talking about as well. But it's a great book, really, really gives you an active way of getting to a place of happiness. Now, we have a full day offsite 3 times a year in January, May, and September on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, and it's all day. And for those of you who are Aspire members, you don't have to pay anything to come to this offsite. It's, a $300 offsite, but you're coming to it as part of your membership, and you don't have to be there the whole day if you don't want to. I know some of you are like, I have a morning meeting, I have a class in the middle of the day. You can come to part of it if you can't come to the whole day. But of course, I would love it if you would come the whole day, because the day flows. We start in the morning with a getting to know you exercise to help you get to know the other Aspire members in person, which is always very rich because most of the time you're hearing people on the phone calls. Then we have our topics. This offsite will be dedicated to habits and happiness. So I'll be bringing some of the exercises and some of the core concepts from these 2 books to you. And then at lunch, we usually have a little bit longer than an hour so people can walk and get their lunch and get a little bit of exercise in the middle of the day, especially if it's nice. And if it's raining, we'll just have it all brought in. And then we have afternoon topics. But then in the afternoon, we have the opportunity to go walk at Dana Point Harbor if we want, and go out to dinner. And again, this is optional, but it gives you a chance to really just enjoy the companionship of the other people in the Aspire community. Usually we get together around educational topics, and we're talking about those topics, and our conversation is kind of structured, but at the end of the day, just being able to talk to people and get to know people and hear each other's stories is wonderful. And that dinner after the offsite tends to be, I think, one of the most rewarding and fulfilling times together that many of our members have. So that's why it's 8 to 8. Okay, now one of the things I have in this presentation, because I think it's a key exercise that you can do this month if you do nothing else, and that is a happiness exercise. So this is a 5-column table. What you're going to want to do is draw this on a notepad and leave more space to write maybe than what I have here. And the first thing you're going to do is brainstorm. Think about 5 moments recently where you felt truly happy, and write those moments in the 5 rows here on your paper, leaving a little bit more room than I have here. But so you can write, okay, that time that I won the argument with my spouse, or the time that I swam 3 miles and I was so excited, or I got so much work done on such and such day, or I was just hanging out with my friends and I was so happy. So think of the moments that you were the happiest and write them down. And then what you're going to do is answer the questions. For each moment, you're going to answer these 4 questions. What was I doing? Who was I with? What was I thinking? And what made it a happy moment? And for those of you who are listening to this as a video, what I would like you to do is pause the video right now and give yourself 5 to 10 minutes to do this exercise. And if you want, you can pause the video and spend 3 minutes doing the exercise. But then what I'd like you to pay attention to is what patterns you notice. What do you see that comes up for you over and over again in your happy moments? Because that, more than anything else, is going to give you the key to your happiness. And I think everyone has a slightly different key. It's almost like we're all uniquely coded as to, what makes us happy, and it has something to do with our values besides the things that make people typically happy. So I'm going to assume that those of you who are working on this exercise have paused the video, done the exercise, looked at your answers, started the video again. You have a couple ideas of patterns that you've noticed, and so we're going to move on. And I'd like to share with you the 5 keys, or the things that come up the most for people when they're doing this exercise. One is engagement, which comes back to flow, which is why flow is our book for the month this month. When you're engaged and focused on something you're involved with, you're feeling really creative, you almost lose a sense of yourself because you're so immersed in the activity. That's one of the keys. Another is relationships. And relationships, I hesitate to use that word. It's almost more connection, because theoretically you could go through a day without any deep relationships, but go through a day walking through a city of strangers, but just have a conscious effort to make really nice, high-quality interactions with everyone you meet, and that could cause as much happiness and sometimes even more than spending time with someone you've been in a long-term relationship with. So when we say that high-quality relationships is a key to happiness, that doesn't mean you have to have the love of your life, or it doesn't mean that you have to be married to be happy. And in many cases, people who are married or are in long-term relationships are way more miserable because the relationships aren't going the way they want them to be than people who aren't in these kinds of relationships. So you're not missing anything by not having one of these elusive relationships. You can create the kind of happiness that comes from relationships from all of your interactions every day. The other thing, physical exercise, good sleep, meditation, all of these things do things to you physiologically that release endorphins and opiates and actually change your brain chemistry so that you're happier. I just listed these three. There are others, but exercise releases opiates in your brain. Good sleep actually clears your brain. It kind of cleanses your brain. That's why when you have a good night's sleep, you kind of wake up with a lot of clarity in your head. And when you have a horrible night's sleep, you wake up and your head's kind of foggy. Meditation gets you into this alpha state with these alpha waves, and those are also very, very healing to your brain, and they can create happiness. One of the things that they've done are studies of people who do kindness meditations, and that's actually what has the most positive effect when it comes to meditation. So meditation in itself is really helpful, mainly because it helps you pay attention and it kind of moves you into that flow state that we were talking about. But also, if you're doing kindness meditations, that works even better, because these emotional states, conscious kindness, optimism, cooperation, and gratitude, these emotions tend to lead to happiness as well. And the fifth key is being a part of or contributing to something greater than yourself. So being part of a community, i.e. the Aspire community, but any community, a community that is devoted to something that you care about, for example, a charity, or cleaning up the environment together, working towards a cause with other people, volunteering, or just being part of your family or your church. That feeling that you get when you know that whatever it is about something more than just you, is a core part of happiness. And there's some science behind all of this, some really interesting scientific findings, and I'm only going to share a few of them with you because I've learned a lot of them over this last month of study. But we actually all have a happiness set point. I thought that was really interesting. And 50% of our happiness comes from this happiness set point, which means that however happy you are generally is however happy you tend to be for the rest of your life if you stay on autopilot. And you could have a really big happy event like winning the lottery, or you could have a really horrible event like becoming paralyzed, and within a certain amount of time, and I think they measured it to be about 8 months, you're back to your happiness set point, whether a good or a bad thing happened, even if it was extremely good or extremely bad. And we're talking really bad things like breakups or grieving over people that are really close to you that you've lost. So happiness really seems to be at a set place for most people, and that tends not to change much unless you make a conscious effort towards changing your thinking patterns. Now, a lot of people will talk about money. Does money buy happiness? And studies have shown that money only correlates to happiness to the extent that basic survival needs are covered, which is really interesting. So if you're not making any money, money can buy happiness because it can help you survive. It can help you get food if you don't have food. It can help you get shelter. But if you're already making enough money to take care of yourself, basically to buy enough food, to get enough clothes, then what tends to happen is whether you're making 80,000 or 800,000, your happiness could be all over the board, because then you move to having other things be important. Now, defining happiness can be tricky. Happiness experiences in the present versus hopes and memories. Okay, this is a really interesting bullet. It tends to be a little bit powerful to think about this, but you're experiencing happiness right now just in this present moment. And the reason I'm struggling with this concept is because actually talking about it with some of our members helped me see how powerful it is and how I don't actually even have my own mind around it yet. But defining happiness can be tricky because only a small portion of your happiness actually has to do with what you're experiencing right now, a taste, a smell, a feel, whatever you're doing in this moment. You can probably rate your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10 right now. But that's just such a small percentage of your happiness. All the rest of it is in your head, and it's in your memories. And the interesting thing about that is our memories aren't photogenic. Our memories aren't entirely accurate. For most of us, we only remember certain things. So we remember different parts of our lives differently. We remember events that had emotional significance to us. We remember things from our unique perspective. So we remember parts of events, and we don't remember other parts that didn't seem as significant. But all of our happiness comes from our memories of our life and our satisfaction about that life, and even what we expect in the future, the things we're looking forward to or our plans that make us happy, also come from our memories. They come from our memories of, what we've learned about ourselves, what we've learned about the world, and what possibilities we think exist for us. So if you think about it, 99 point whatever percent of our happiness comes from something in our head that we can't even rely on to be 100% accurate. And that actually blows my mind. But what it brings forth is this really interesting question about pursuit of happiness and what should we really be pursuing. We think we need to be pursuing more money, more prestige, a better situation, when maybe what we need to be pursuing is a difference in our thinking pattern. And this is just such an interesting conversation that we're probably going to talk about it more in depth on our calls this month. Okay, so if I didn't blow you away too much with that bullet, there's one more interesting bullet from the Science of Happiness, and that is that biologically we're programmed to feel happier when we're doing things that are good for us as a species. So there's that whole part of it that you don't think about either. But for example, when we're cooperating with each other, human beings need to live in a group in order to survive in terms of a species. And so sometimes we have to put our individual needs below the needs of the community. And turns out scientifically that we actually feel happier when we are serving a community at the expense of ourselves, or when we're giving as opposed to receiving. And so when we're doing other things that promote our species, like procreating, for example, we tend to be happier. So there's a biological component to happiness as well. Okay, so what to do this month? That was a lot of information. Most of our monthly overview videos are not going to be this long, but we just had so much, and I think it's because we're starting a year. But, the most important things for you to do, especially if you feel like, oh my gosh, this is so much, I don't have that much time, decide on your theme for 2016. And you don't even have to be ingrained. Just come up with some kind of a draft of it. And it's perfectly acceptable for you to carry over your theme from 2015. But, pencil in a theme if you haven't gotten it down yet. And then fill out the Simple Plan progress report. We send progress reports out every Sunday. This week, the first week in January, what we sent out was something a little different, slightly different questions, just to help you get grounded for the year. And it asks you things about your theme, about any goals that you might want to share, things you want to focus on, things you want to practice, self-observations you might want to make, and how you intend to use the Aspire program, because there's so much available in our program. Each one of you is going to be using it a little bit differently. Some of you are going to be focusing more on email interactions with me individually to help you move forward towards your goal. Some of you are going to rely more on being on the group calls very frequently to keep you moving ahead. Some of you are going to focus on showing up at in-person events and then maybe listening to recorded calls and doing a lot of work on your own. And all of that's fine. The most important thing is that you're moving forward in your way according to what works best for you. For those of you who haven't already scheduled your holiday bonus call or completed your year in review, that's a good thing to do in January. The holiday bonus call is something that I give every year to all my group clients because I cancel 2 weeks of group calls over the holidays. So in exchange, you each get a 1-hour individual call where we can talk about anything you want. That expires on January 31st. So if you don't already have it scheduled, you want to get it on the calendar, and it's optional. You don't have to take it. But if you want it, that's an hour of one-on-one conversation with me where you can go over your goals, your theme, discuss your year in review, do pretty much anything you want. Your year in review is a document that we love to have you do every year. A lot of people like to compare their responses year over year to see how they've grown. And then, as a fourth thing, if you have time to read and you're a reader, read the book Flow. And if you don't have time, listen to the TED Talk. And I think I have the TED Talk listed on this page beforehand, but if not, just search for it on Google. Most importantly, choose something to pay attention to in yourself and in your life, because your self-observations are going to be the one thing that helps you see new evidence out there and helps you become free of any beliefs that might be limiting you. And then something to practice every single day. You're going to have busy days. We all have busy days. Things happen during the days, things that you have to take care of. You have long to-do lists, but you can practice anything as long as it's integrated into your daily activities. You can practice positive thinking. You can practice listening better. You can practice exercising more, counting steps, whatever you think is important, you can practice as long as you make a conscious effort to it. So as long as you have a theme, something you're paying attention to, and something you're practicing, you're going to move forward. Okay? I would say the most important thing I'd like to have you get out of this month is happiness is not as elusive as you might imagine. There are many things you can do to get happier if you want to be. And a good question for you to think about and maybe try to answer this month is, what is the source of your happiness? Because for everyone it might be a little bit different. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this video. I think I might be creating one of these every month just to help you get a sense of a monthly overview of all the things that are available and maybe what your priorities are. But either way, I think we are off to a great start for 2016. I know that I am really, really excited, and this month is starting us off with a bang. Have a great one.